Tuesday, and we're studying chapter 39. Welcome to our friends on YouTube. Today we're learning Tanya, chapter 39, and the theme of today's Torah study is a glimpse into heaven. We're very familiar with what goes on in this world, but what do we know about heaven, about our ability to reach heaven? And we know about Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. Let's talk a little bit more about that in the flow of Tanya, Chabad Hasidic philosophy, which we're studying today, chapter 39 of the book of Tanya, in this most magnificent journey through our own souls. So just to put things into context of what we're holding right now, we've learned in the past few chapters the idea that a mitzvah is not just a commandment, it's not just an obligation, it's not just a responsibility, it's not just God making our lives difficult. A mitzvah is an opportunity to change the world. A mitzvah is the reason why we were placed into this world. The very word mitzvah means connection. When we do a mitzvah, we connect that physical object with which the mitzvah was performed with Almighty God. When God created this world, He deliberately removed Himself, concealed Himself from this world so that you and I, the chosen people, would have the opportunity to use our free choice to reveal and uncover God within this world every time we do a mitzvah. In order to make that, when we do that mitzvah, we are building a house for God in this world. We're making God feel at home in this world. And that is the idea for which we were created in the first place. We explained this idea a few chapters ago in Tanya, chapter 36, that the entire purpose of all of our existence is to make for God a dira betachtonim, which means a home in this low world, a home for God in the spiritually dark world, which is the lowest world of all worlds when it comes to godly revelation. Here, the revelation of godliness is zero. When we do a mitzvah, we are preparing this world to be a home for God, which will ultimately culminate in the coming of Mashiach. Mashiach is the era in which God will be revealed. The veil will be lifted. All the efforts, all the collective efforts of all the Jewish people, over all the generations, will come to be revealed as every single stone upon which we study Torah, as every home in which a mitzvah was performed, every kitchen, every dining room, every corporate boardroom, every bank account which was used for a mitzvah will be illuminated with the light of God. Now we spoke that was chapters 36, but in chapter 37 and 38, we said that it's not enough to build a house for God. A house for God happens through doing an action mitzvah. This idea contrasts Judaism from many other religions that are purely spiritual, purely intellectual, purely meditative, without any emphasis on action at all. And Judaism has in fact been criticized by other religions for being too physical, for not being spiritual enough. This emphasis on food and drink and alcohol and physical objects and marriage and all sorts of physical experiences. Having children seems so unspiritual, seems so ungodly, when in reality, Tanya teaches us the purpose of creation is not for us to feel spiritual. The purpose is for us to fulfill the will of God, for us to be holy, not spiritual, but holy, by building for God a home in this world. Now, an action mitzvah, we said, is enough to sanctify this physical world. But action mitzvah is not enough. You need something else in order to draw the light to the physical world. When you draw the light of God to this physical world, you're building not just a house for God, but a home for God. Just like a house is not enough for you to live in, you need your furniture. These crazy movie stars, they travel with their own couches and their own artwork and their own interior decoration. So God forbid they shouldn't be spending a few nights on tour somewhere in a hotel room that's not to their tastes. But there's something to be said for that, where you want to decorate the home to your own taste. So if God's going to be living in this world, if God's going to be revealed in this world, it's not enough for us to do action mitzvahs that make for God a physical house. We need to make Him feel at home. And that happens by drawing the light of God to this world. The way we draw the light of God to this world is way more than just action. That requires kavanah, which means emotion. Kavanah really means concentration or mindfulness. When you do a mitzvah with mindfulness, what that means is that you're doing it with an emotional feeling of connection during the mitzvah. And until this point, in the last chapter, we differentiated between 4 kinds of emotional feeling. We spoke about a conscious emotion that was created through your meditation. We spoke about a natural emotion, which is just an instinctive love that we have to our maker, just like you have an instinctive love to your parents. We spoke about lower levels of emotion, which were just conscious thought without any flaring emotion. And then there were mitzvahs that were performed on pure action alone. We spoke of 4 levels: action, thought, conscious thought, natural emotion, and conscious emotion, a meditated emotion. What we're going to discuss now is what these various kinds of emotion do for our neshama, for our soul, where they lead our soul in heaven. So we spoke about frequencies last week. We spoke about how the various intensity of your mindfulness of the action mitzvah draws down different frequencies of godliness down to this world. But now we're going to look at the flip side, which is what level of heaven we are able to reach through our various kavanah. I see that I have here with me studying is Rob Berger. Good morning, Rob, and Harvey Barnett, both from Chicago. Marty Boker Tov. Dean, hi from Juno Beach. Stephanie, Stephanie, you and Corey were waiting on the Zoom. I don't know why you were on Zoom, because we don't do Zoom on Tuesdays. So, the only time I do Zoom is on, I think, Thursdays and Fridays. It's advertised in our weekly email on Friday. It tells you exactly where to find us. I'm sorry that you were stuck on Zoom. Typically, we're always on Facebook and most times on YouTube as well, depending on how it's advertised in the weekly email. So nice to see you, Corey and Stephanie. Let's see what's going on YouTube. I see Elaine is with me on YouTube and a few others that I can't see who they are. But whoever's with us here live and later, it's a pleasure to have you with us. We're going to go a little deep today. This morning, we're going to dive a little deep. So put on your snorkel. We're going to dive a little bit. We're going down into a glimpse behind the veil to understand a little bit about heaven. I'm sorry if I froze. I have no idea, friends, why I'm freezing. Oh, goodness. Corey, you're right. It says Zoom on the WhatsApp. My apologies. I do apologize if it said Zoom on the WhatsApp advertising. My apologies. That was my mistake. I don't know why I froze. I'm trying to keep on talking so that you can tell me that I'm back on track. Typically, by the way, YouTube seems to always be more reliable. Elena, we good on YouTube? Please comment if the signal on YouTube is freezing or if it's consistent. Today, we're at the strongest YouTube connection. It's the strongest Wi-Fi signal that we have. It's at the shul, so this should be the best, strongest connection. Elaine, please comment on YouTube. Tell me how strong the connection is. It's perfect. Okay, good. So friends, just as a general rule, you probably want to just join on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. I don't know what's up with Facebook. No idea why Facebook's freezing today and yesterday. But it seems that on YouTube, it's always a stronger signal. So feel free to jump over to youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. That's youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. Good morning, Andy. Am I back on track on Facebook, friends? Can you tell me if I'm back on track so I can keep on going? Please give me a sign of life here, friends, on Facebook that I can keep on going on Facebook. Are we good? Or do you need to switch over to youtube.com/Jewish Gardens? Anybody there on Facebook? I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody on Facebook responding, so I don't know if I'm back on. How annoying. Sorry. I see the YouTube numbers are picking up. Looks like people are jumping over to YouTube. Thank you, Stephanie. That's youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. Oh, Terry says we're good. Andy says we're good on Facebook. And Corey says we're good. Fantastic. Let's keep on going. Okay, this is powerful stuff, guys. Maybe it's jamming the signal. So we're learning today about the... we spoke last week about the frequencies of godliness that we draw down through our various kavanah, through our varying meditative states, which accompany our mindful states, which accompany the action mitzvahs that we perform, like prayer, like tzedakah. You can give tzedakah mindlessly by just putting the coin in the charity box, giving it to charity. And that would be on the lowest level. There would be an action mitzvah without any meditation or conscious thought at all. And that would be, like we learned last week, the lowest level, the level of the inanimate, the degree of godliness which is present in the inanimate kingdom, like stones and water. There's some godliness in them, but it's not very visible. Then there's if you do a mitzvah with conscious thought, let's say you give charity and you do so knowing that this is a mitzvah. There's no love. You're davening, you understand the words, but there's no love flying here. So that's conscious thought. That would be on the level of what this is all for. We learned last week, chapter 38. That would be on the level not of the inanimate, but on the level of the vegetable kingdom. So that would be like the godly life force that is inside the vegetable kingdom. You see life in the plants. It's just not life like in animals or in humans, but there's life over there. So you've drawn down a higher frequency of godliness. Then if you do a mitzvah out of a natural love, out of your pinta l'yid, I'm a Jew and I love God. Why? But just like I love my parents, it's a natural love. I love my parents naturally because I come from them. I love God because God is my father, my mother. I come from God. So there's a natural love which I recognize, and that if that's what motivates your mitzvah, then you're on the level of the animal kingdom, which has much greater godly energy in it than the vegetable kingdom. And if you're conscious enough, if you're mindful enough to be able to meditate and create an emotion within yourself, now you've progressed to the level of the human kingdom. Now you're way up there. You're way up above. You've progressed to the level of the human kingdom. And just like in the human kingdom, there is tremendous godly energy. We're able to innovate. We're able to create vaccines. We're able to solve problems. We're able to broker deals and business mergers and acquisitions. We're able to love and to write and to create and to whatever. That is a far more intense frequency of godly energy inside of the human being. And that's the level that we draw down to this world when we do an action mitzvah with a conscious meditation, conscious emotion created by meditation. And that's what we draw down when we create a home for God in this world. And that's all we spoke about last week. But today we're going to go a little bit further. Today we're going to go higher, actually, as we take a glimpse behind the veil to understand what happens to our souls when we do mitzvahs with these varying degrees of kavanah. Generally speaking, the principle is midah keneged midah, measure for measure. Your reward, your spiritual reward, your heavenly reward is commensurate with your effort. If you have served God on an intellectual level where you've really used your brain in service of God, you will reach the part of heaven where intellect reigns supreme. I'll explain this in a moment. If you've served God only primarily with your heart, but your brain really wasn't part of the emotion, part of the service of God, your soul is rewarded by reaching a part in heaven after you die. Your soul is sent to heaven, to a place in heaven called the lower Gan Eden, the lower paradise, where emotions reign supreme. And if you've only served God on an action level, or if you've served God on a level higher than intellect, and we're going to talk about that, you will reach the ultimate level. In our culture, in our society, we live in a culture which idolizes wisdom. Wisdom is like the ultimate paradigm. If it makes sense to me, terrific. If it doesn't make sense to me, it's wrong, it doesn't exist, it's bad. We live in a culture where if I don't understand something, The problem is not with me, the problem is with it. If I don't understand where God was during the Holocaust, that's God's problem, not my problem. This is an attitude that idolizes wisdom. It's self-centered, which basically says, if you can't explain yourself to me, then there's something wrong with you. It's a very self-centered approach. What happens if the person you're talking to is so much wiser than you that you don't even reach their ankles? What happens if you're talking to an Einstein? And just because you don't understand Einstein, therefore Einstein's wrong? No. That means you're a fool and Einstein is a genius. So if Einstein we don't even reach Einstein's ankles. What about God? Could we possibly fathom God? God is almighty, infinite creator, and we're just these finite beings. There is something higher than intellect, and we're going to talk about that in part 2 of this chapter. There is something higher than intellect, which allows us to reach the ultimate level of connection, of spiritual reward in heaven. Now, let's talk about this idea. We spoke about it in general. Let's go a little bit more in detail. You'll notice that the number 4 comes up very often in Judaism. It's a very powerful concept in Kabbalah. The number 4. What's up with the number 4? Remember, if you're freezing on Facebook like Rob is, move over to YouTube. That's youtube.com/Jewish Gardens, youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. Corey's asking a question. Isn't that more understanding than wisdom? I don't understand, Corey, what you're asking. Isn't that more understanding than wisdom? Sorry, Corey, I don't understand the question. If you could please elaborate. Okay, so the number 4 comes up frequently in Judaism. You have 4 sons at the Seder. You have 4 questions at the Seder. You have, where else do we have the number 4? We have 4, where else do we have the number 4? There's many 4s. I'm trying to remember. I'm blanking out right now. 4 sides to the dreidel. Thank you, Rob. But there's 4 very powerful numbers in Judaism. I can't remember right now. But there's also 4 letters to the name of God, to the ineffable, the tetragrammaton, the ineffable name of God. Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. The four mitzvahs of Sukkot, Lulav, Esrog, Arava, and Adas, the myrtle and the willow. Good. You have the 4 letters of the name of God, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. We're not allowed to even say that word in one shot. And we also have, corresponding to them all, is the 4 spiritual worlds. Generally speaking, we contract the 4 spiritual worlds into an acronym called Abiyah. Abiya. Abiyah. The 4 worlds of Abiyah stand for the following. Abiya. They stand for the following 4 spiritual worlds. I'm going to explain this now. The first one is Atzilus. The A stands for Atzilus, which means emanation or nearness. This is the level, the world that's closest to God. Then the B stands for Bria, which means the world of creation. The Y stands for Yetzira, the world of formation. And ultimately, the 4th one, the letter A, stands for Asiya, the world of action. That's collectively Abiyah, Abiya, the worlds of Abiyah, 4 worlds. Atzilus is the first, the world of closeness or emanation. The second, the B, is Bria, the world of creation. The third is Yetzira, the world of formation. And the 4th is the world of Asiya, the world of action. We, by the way, are in the world of Asiya, on the lowest level of the world of Asiya. We're the lowest world in the worlds of Asiya, the worlds of action. Now, the reason why there are 4 worlds are because this is how God, I see comments coming in on YouTube, on Facebook. Corey says 4 mothers. Question meaning, if you don't understand, then why something happened, then it's not your problem, it's theirs or his. I'm sorry, Corey, I'm still not following. Are you asking a question or are you making a statement? If you don't understand the why something happened, then it's not your problem, it's theirs or his. Are you agreeing? Are you disagreeing? Are you asking me a question? I'm not clear, Corey. In any event, why do we have four worlds? What do we need these four worlds for? Why isn't it enough just to have God and us? Because right now I'm talking to you. You're listening to me. And there's a certain disconnect between you and me right now. For example, I can't understand what Corey's asking me. If she's asking me a question, if she's clarifying, if she's agreeing, if she's explaining, because there's a certain disconnect between my brain and Corey's brain. Corey's trying to tell me something. She's expressing it through the conduit of a computer screen, fingers and typewriters and whatever, keyboards, and it's getting distilled. That's this idea that's in Corey's head is being distilled into a keyboard, which is coming across to me through a YouTube, minus any facial expressions, minus any body language. It's a little difficult to read. I'm trying my best, but it's a little difficult. And the same thing, you're trying your best to understand what I'm saying. Hopefully you're trying your best. And I'm trying my best to express myself to you because I can't just give you like a video screen of what's going on in my brain right now. I've got to distill what's going on in my brain. I've got to contract the idea that is clear to me into my understanding, run it through my emotions, and then express it in my speech. And that idea can easily get lost in translation. So whenever you express yourself to someone else, we often notice that we have a hard time just expressing our feelings. Imagine if we would be clearly capable of expressing exactly what's on our minds, exactly what's on our hearts in the most clearest way. That would be beautiful. Imagine if the person we were talking to was able to hear exactly what we were trying to say. But oftentimes it just gets lost in translation because such is the way that God created the world that we express ourselves through a sequence of evolution. The idea has to evolve from my essence to my mind, to my heart, to my expression. I see Corey is making a statement. Earlier I called it wisdom as a level. To me, it sounds like understanding. Okay, I wasn't differentiating Corey between wisdom and understanding. For the purposes of what I was talking about, it was arbitrary. It was the same thing. It was an intellectual approach without getting into the nuances of chachma, bina, das, of wisdom, understanding, and realization. Thank you, Corey. So just like you and I, when we talk to each other, we have to express ourselves through a sequence of evolution, what Elaine is calling tzimtzumim, a series of distilling the idea. Just like imagine when you're talking to a child. If you're trying to explain to a child an idea. I think one of my kids was asking me the other day something about how money works or something. And, you got to explain this idea. So you can't just explain exactly the way you understand it. You got to explain it in a way that the child will understand it. So you got to distill the idea to your intellect, to your emotion, to the way, the words you're going to choose. And then you hope that they can understand what you're going to say. So just like we have to distill our expression, so too God does the same thing. You can't just meet God face to face like you can't meet me face to face, or I can't meet you face to face, because you've got your essence is hidden. As we approach God, there's ways of God that God expressed himself. So on the nearest level of expression, there's the world of Atzilus, the highest world. This is the world of emanation. It's not even the world of creation yet. It's just the first emanation outside of God. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. I don't want to get lost in that, in the beauty of that level yet. But the second level is the world of creation. Bria. On this level, what dominates is intellect. In the world of Bria, dominates intellect. That's called the higher Gan Eden. When souls leave this world, whether they go to the higher Gan Eden or to the lower Gan Eden, the higher paradise, the lower paradise is what we're going to be talking about in a moment. So the second step of godly evolution, of godly expression, is through intellect, where God distills himself as an idea, as something which we can fathom. And that's what dominates in the world of Bria, the world of creation. The next step is the world of Yetzirah, the world of formation. There, what dominates is emotion. Here, God distills himself even further from intellect down to an emotion, to a feelings, from something you can understand to something you can actually feel. And that world of Yetzirah, the third world of Abiyah, is the lower Gan Eden. Until ultimately you reach this world, which is the world of Asiyah. That's where we are already right now. So when we die, when we leave this world, what happens to our souls? Well, it all depends how you lived your life. The Talmud says that your place in Gan Eden is dependent upon how much Torah you studied and what quality of Torah study you endured, you experienced during this world. And in light of this chapter, it starts to make sense because your reward is commensurate to your effort. How did you perform mitzvahs and study Torah? What was your kavanah? See, now we're not talking about action alone right now. We're now talking about the intent, the mindfulness, the mindful context with which you performed your mitzvahs and observed and studied your Torah. If your Torah and mitzvahs were motivated by an emotion, by a natural love, just a natural instinctive love, what last chapter we called the level of the animal kingdom, then you'll reach the level, the third world, the world of Yetzirah, which is a world that dominates emotion, that's dominated by emotion. It's a world in which God chooses to express himself as an emotion. It's a world of feeling. Like begets like. Your reward is commensurate with your effort. Since you served God primarily through emotion, therefore you rise to the lower Gan Eden, the lower paradise, where you're able to experience godliness through emotion. If, however, you were conscious in this world, if you were present, if you experienced higher consciousness, where your mind was dominating over your emotion, mind over matter, not like an animal where his heart and brain are in the same level. Animals are horizontal. But as a human being, which is vertical, where the brain is higher than the heart, where we can create our emotions. We can choose how we view our fellow Jews. Do you have a knee-jerk reaction to your fellow Jew? I want you to think about this for a moment. Let's say you're on one side of the political aisle right now. Let's say you're a Biden Democrat, right? And your neighbor is a Trump Republican. How do you feel about that Jew right now? Or vice versa? I challenge you right now how you feel about your fellow Jew who's on the other side of the political aisle, the polar opposite of you, the one you know is going to vote the opposite of you in this national election. So if your instinct is to not like them, then you have an instinctive, emotional, knee-jerk reaction. Your mitzvah of loving your fellow Jew is emotionally motivated. But if you're conscious, you say, listen, mind over matter. I don't agree with that fellow Jew, but he's my brother, she's my sister, and I love her unconditionally. Notwithstanding their stupidity, I love my fellow Jew unconditionally. I'm not sure what you're disappointed, Rob. What if you're a Biden Republican? Please don't get caught up here in the nuance. I'm just using an example. This is not a political endorsement. It's not a political condemnation. This is purely for intellectual purposes only. You know, somebody told me a few months ago that they're upset with me because I endorsed one of the political candidates in one of my classes, and I said, "What are you talking about?" So he said, I referenced the awe of standing in the presence of the President of the United States as an example for something I was talking about. And they thought that was like an endorsement of the president. And I was like, no, just an example. Yeah, it's a crazy world we live in. Thank you, Marty. I'm glad you're just making fun. You never know today, you know. So Rob says, like my child who I love, but I'm disappointed with bad decisions. Beautiful. So Rob, I agree with you. You can be disappointed, but you still love your child. And can you view your fellow Jew with the same approach? To say, look, I'm disappointed in their stupidity or their foolishness or their bad judgment, but I love you. It's like having a sick limb, God forbid. Let's say your arm is not behaving like it should. It's sick, but I love my arm. It's still mine. It's a piece of me. That's how you view your fellow Jew, mindfully. You say, look, this is my sister, my brother, it's a piece of me. Even though they're not behaving properly, they're making bad decisions, I still love them. That's a conscious, mindful approach to loving your fellow Jew. Here, you don't love them instinctively or hate them instinctively. You master your emotion. This is an idea we've learned way long ago in Tanya. So what happens now is that your service of God is intellectually motivated. And therefore, when you die, your soul goes to not the lower Gan Eden, the third world of Yetzirah, the world of formation, where emotions dominate, but to the second world, the world of intellect, the world of Bria, what's known as the world of creation, where intellect dominates. Because here, you'll be able to, your soul is given a reward commensurate with your efforts, where you're able to experience godliness on the same level that you toiled in this world. And in heaven, you'll be able to delight in the presence of God with an intellectual appreciation, which is so much greater and so much more intense than delighting in God in an emotional connection. Now, let's not put down the emotional connection with God. Not everybody merits to get to the world of Yetzirah, the third world, the world of emotion. Sometimes people go to purgatory. They go to Gehinnom, where they're not even good enough to enter into heaven, into Gan Eden. But today we've been introduced to two levels of Gan Eden, the lower one, the emotional one, and the higher one, which is the intellectual one. You know, some people are sent into limbo. If you listened to my class yesterday about the murderers of Zechariah the prophet, where was King Yehoash and his officers who murdered the prophet Zechariah in the Holy Temple on Yom Kippur, you will realize that those souls were in limbo for 2,500 years until the Alter Rebbe was able to redeem them. The author of the Tanya was able to have them given access into Gan Eden through giving them the benefit of the doubt, through judging them favorably in their actions, as we spoke about yesterday. So what happens here is, friends, is that what kind of connection do you have with the person that you love? I want you to think about this a moment. You love your child, but what kind of connection do you have with your child? When your child is a baby, you play with them. It's like an action relationship. But as they mature, it becomes more of an emotional connection. In the beginning, it's just cute. You know, they poop, you laugh. They say something silly, you laugh. They slap you across the face, you laugh. It's just like an action connection. But as they mature, it becomes more of an emotional connection. Mommy, I love you. Daddy, I love you. You're the best mommy I ever had. It becomes more of an emotional thing. But then as they mature even more, you become more of an intellectual connection. I have an uncle in Israel. He studies with his son every single night Talmud. How beautiful. They have this deep intellectual connection relationship. So when you love someone, you want to connect with them on an ever deeper level. What kind of connection do you have with your spouse? Is it just an emotional connection? Is it an intellectual connection? Is it maybe deeper than that, which is the end of chapter 39? I'm not going to go there today because that's going to require its own introduction. Or is it just an action connection? Some people are married because they can't afford to get divorced. Or it's just more convenient to live together. Or they just got benefits, health insurance and other stuff. So the way we serve God in this world by our own free choice dictates the reward that will be given when we're given the fruits of our labor. When we want to connect to Hashem in heaven, we will either be granted an emotional relationship or an intellectual relationship. And by the way, that's not stagnant, it's dynamic. There's infinite levels of emotional connection, and there's infinite levels of intellectual connection. Let's take a look at the comments coming in here. Elaine, so do our Yortzeit tributes have the capability to move the departed to another level of Gan Eden despite what they did in their lives? Absolutely. When you, the child, Elaine, when you, the child of your parents, mature your relationship with God, that serves to their credit. So if your parents' relationship with God, let's say, was one which was negative, or maybe it was one which was primitive, action only. I go to shul, I check in, I check out once a year on Yom Kippur, and I'm done. I'll see God next year. And now you've deepened your connection. You're studying Torah. You're meditating. Now you, Elaine, have evolved your relationship with God from action to emotion. Now what happens is, as you stand before God on Yizkor and you mention your parents' names, they're like, oh, you're the father of Elaine Collins. Your daughter is flying with emotional connection to God, or maybe even intellectual. That serves to elevate you in heaven. Absolutely. Marty, why are the angels only in the world of Yetzirah? How do you know, Marty, that the angels are only in the world of Yetzirah? Is that because you've read chapter 39, or because of something else that you've been exposed to? I'll be curious to know. Let's see the comments as I wait for Marty to answer me, and I will then answer him further. I would like to look at Andy's comments on Facebook. You're using just a hypothetical example. Thank you, Andy. I think you're talking about the president situation over there. Please don't take it personally when I reference the president. Terry from Atlanta, wouldn't telling yourself you love somebody regardless of their stupidity be a sign of arrogance? Okay, maybe I used an over-dramatic expression. Maybe it's a bit of a sign of arrogance, but so what? So what if you're a little bit arrogant? It's not perfect. Nobody said that you're being perfect, but you're being mindful, you're being conscious, notwithstanding your own arrogance, which actually is your own or my own downfall. Still, I'm still having a mindful love of somebody that I disagree with. Doesn't mean that I'm perfect. It means that I'm being conscious of my relationship with him. And maybe that's why I use that example to show that even in my own imperfections, I can still have a mindful, conscious love, as opposed to just a natural knee-jerk reaction. I challenge you, Terry, about how you live your life. Is your life one of reaction, or is it one of proaction? Do you relate to people as the reactionary measure to their initiations? Or are you mindful to the point that you are proactive to how you view other people? In general, how do you live your emotions? In general, friends, all of you here with me on Facebook, are your emotions in control of you? Or are you in control of your emotions? If your emotions are in control of you, then you're living like an animal, not bad, in a positive sense. You're living like an animal in the sense that you're not yet human. Human is vertical, animals are horizontal. So the human is the one that is on top of his game. His emotions are the slave, the servant of his intellect. I feel what I want to feel, and I don't feel what I don't want to feel. If you're not like that, then you're like an angel, by the way, Marty. Let me see if you've answered me yet. I'm curious to know. Very good. Excellent. I'm very proud of you. Right ahead. Good. So the angels are, and by the way, everybody share, I want to highly encourage you to do as Marty did, to read ahead, to review the chapter. You can always find lessons in Tanya. It's on our website, georgegardens.com. Just search lessons in Tanya in the search box and read the chapter, read it over, review. I remember I do an overview. I bring you into the helicopter. I don't take you down into the weeds. I highly encourage you after and before my class to do it just like Marty did, to read the chapter. Today we're doing chapter 39, the first half. Read it, review it. So what I was saying, friends, is that, just to answer Marty's question, is that, so why are the angels only in Yetzirah? The reason is like this. Angels are pre-programmed. They're called chayas. You know what a chaya is? A chaya, like a wilde chaya, is a wild animal. The angels are called chayos hakodesh, the holy animals, because angels are pre-programmed, mass-produced servants of God. They don't decide how to behave. They behave just like animals have an instinct to eat and drink and sleep and procreate. Angels are holy animals. That's what they are. They're pre-programmed to serve God, to do the right thing, and that's exactly how they roll. It's only the human that we don't have a clue how he's going to operate, because the human has the gift of freedom of choice, and animals don't. Animals and angels are the same thing. They're spiritual animals. They're holy animals. And that's why they're dictated by their emotion. They are the slaves of their emotion, not the masters of their emotion. And therefore, angels live primarily in the world of Yetzirah, in the world of formation, where emotion reigns supreme. The Alter Rebbe in the notes in the beginning of chapter 39 says there are some angels that do have the ability for conscious thought. And those angels will be living in the world of Bria, which is the world of creation where intellect reigns supreme. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Marty. Andy, especially the fellow who is hardest to like. There you go. The mitzvah is to love the guy that you don't want to like. It's easy to love a Jew in New Zealand. It's the Shmendrik next door to you. That's the one with the, with the lawn sign that bothers you in your face all the time. That's the one that's hard to love. Terry, do my best to be mindful and control of my emotions, except for the call of my family members. Thank you for your honesty. Aren't we all like that, Terry? Studying Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication. I am too, Terry. I'm amazed that you're studying that book. I'm reading it right now, Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication. In fact, my sister-in-law in Israel is licensed and trained in nonviolent NVC, whatever it's called, nonviolent communication. Very interesting. I'm studying it. So you're saying that there's a Tanya connection to that. Really helps, again, gain mastery of our emotions. So I'm in the middle of reading that book too. And I'm glad that you are. Fascinating. Marshall Rosenberg's a Jewish guy that led a psychological revolution. He's like another Sigmund Freud when it comes to psychotherapy. He's much more recent, though, I think. In any event, you used to teach NVC. Fascinating. We'd love to hear more about that. In any event, let me try to wrap this all together here for today. So we've learned today about the four worlds. We learned why we need to have four worlds. And we learned what they were. I want you to know that in our prayers, we actually experience all these four worlds. The reason why you have to daven, and I know this is a challenge that Marty and I have often clashed over, why prayers are necessary, why prayers are so long, why do we have to have prayers without musical accompaniments, right? Because prayer is a deeply personal experience. It's a ladder where you go from earth to heaven. You start off prayer on the world of Asiya, the world of action. You're just saying the words. Then you reach Baruch She'amar V'Haya Ha'olam, all the way until Baruch She'amar V'Haya Olam, to the beginning of songs of praise, is all action, just action. But once you reach the songs of praise, from Baruch She'amar until Yishtabach, it's about songs of praise where you feel the love. You're like, oh my God, God created this and God created that, and this is so awesome. And you're just feeling an emotional arousal every morning when you daven. Now you've risen to the world of Yetzirah, formation, emotion. Then you reach the Shema. Shema has got two blessings, two meditative blessings beforehand, profound meditations. And you reach the meditation of the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Havaya Elokeinu, the God of infinity, the God of miracles, is Mother Nature, as I have often explained this. Mother Nature and the God of miracles is the one and the same thing. Now you've reached the world of Bria, creation, the world of intellect, not meditation. And then ultimately you reach the highest level, the Amida, the silent Amida, when you stand before God in utter surrender and humility. That is the world of Atzilus, the world of emanation, the world of oneness and intimacy with God. So we actually experience this on a conscious level every day. And generally speaking, to wrap this all up, the righteous tzaddikim, the tzaddikim, the ones that we've learned about in Tanya, the ones that have experienced self-mastery. How do you reach self-mastery? We spoke about in the long way of Tanya, chapters 18 through 25. We said that is through meditating, creating an emotion. I'm sorry, the long way was chapter 9 through 17. Those tzaddikim that are able to create a love through meditation, a conscious love of God, they reach, not only do they draw down the highest frequency of godliness to make a home for God, but their souls reach into the higher Gan Eden. When they die, they go to the higher Gan Eden, higher than the angels even, to the world of intellect. However, the souls that aren't able to serve God through conscious meditation, because for whatever reason, maybe they're lazy, maybe they just don't have the capacity to study, maybe they don't have the capacity to think, maybe they live in a culture like ours, where we can't focus on anything more than 17 seconds because we're so constantly distracted. If you're serving God only through a natural love, like you love your parents naturally, you have to meditate upon the love of your parents. You have to meditate upon the love of your children. You just do it because I naturally love my children. If that's your relationship with God as well, then it's an instinctive relationship with God, and you're on the level of Yetzirah, which is the world of formation, the world of emotion. And that's where your soul reaches when you die. It's the lower Gan Eden. That's where the angels reside. And I'm just going to say in conclusion that on special occasions like Shabbos and Yontif and on Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the new month, our souls, even the souls that are on the lower Gan Eden, the souls of emotion, are given an aliyah. What does an aliyah mean? an elevation. You're lifted up. And they're lifted up to the world of creation, the world of Bria, the world of intellect, higher than the angels. Why does this happen? Shabbos and Yontif is a time of holiness. It's not a time where you're supposed to realize, oh my God, I got to close the store. I can't play on the internet. I can't drive my car. Shabbos and Yontif is not a time to think about all the things that you cannot do. That's like being alone with your wife on your honeymoon and thinking about all the things that you can't do right now. It's like ridiculously immature and unconscious of what actually is going on. When you're with your honeymoon, your wife and a honeymoon in a beautiful place, you focus on your spouse. That's what you do. You don't think about all the things that, all the stuff that you can't do right now. That's what we do on Shabbos and Yontif. We unite with God in an aliyah, in an elevation where our souls are lifted up from the world of Yetzirah to the world of Beriah. And why does that happen? Why do we merit that? There's a elevator between the two worlds, between the higher and the lower Gan Eden. It's called the pillar. The Alter Rebbe calls it the pillar between the two worlds, quoting the Zohar. And the reason that there's a fast track to go from the lower Gan Eden to the higher Gan Eden is because we actually are far more deserving than angels. Angels never go up to the higher Gan Eden, but we do. Why? Because at the end of the day, angels don't do whatever they do because of instinct, because it's built into them, like animals. But we serve God actually consciously quite a lot. We have the human merit of making a lot of conscious decisions in general, whilst our mitzvahs might not be motivated by full-blown emotions through meditation. The fact that we make decisions to not do this or yes to do that, that's rational thought. That is something that only humans have, that angels don't have. That freedom of choice that led us to do the right thing and avoid the wrong thing is a human element, which makes us far more deserving than angels. And therefore, on special occasions, we are given that elevation to rise higher. And with this, friends, I'm going to conclude today's class. Unless there's any questions or comments coming in. It's been a pleasure studying Tanya with you here today. A glimpse into heaven. What we're going to do next week is to take this to the next level, to work out what happens, what lies beyond intellect, how we can truly connect with God on the most intimate level, to reach the higher world, higher even than heaven. Can you imagine? When you die, you go not to heaven, but to higher than heaven. What an amazing, amazing concept. I mean, it's just hard for us to fathom what that even means. So that's what we're going to talk about next week, as well as some other more down-to-earth and practical levels with which we might relate to God, maybe without the full-blown emotion, without the instinctive emotion. How about we're going to be talking about mitzvahs motivated by no consciousness, just mindlessness. And I think a lot of us can relate to those kind of mitzvahs. And how about mitzvahs that are done not for the right reason, but specifically for the wrong reason? How about if you're doing a mitzvah for the wrong reason, because you want to be honored, you want to be respected, because you want people to notice you, you give a lot of charity because you want your name lifted up or put up in lights somewhere. If you do the mitzvah for the wrong reason. We've spoken about two very lofty levels today, serving God with full-blown emotion or with instinctive emotion. But what about on a more practical level? Mitzvahs done for selfish reasons, or mitzvahs that are done for mindlessness reasons, just nothing, just out of routine. All that we're going to be talking about next week in Tanya chapter 39, part 2. Corey, beautiful class. Thank you so much. Love what you said about Shabbos, not about what you cannot do. Exactly. It's like someone else in the community, Antonella, told me that someone who doesn't want to keep Shabbos is like someone who, she says, who prefers to go catch frogs in a swamp in Lake Okeechobee rather than staying in a 5-star hotel in Paris. Just an example that she brought out. Like, why would you want to miss out on this incredible experience to go catch frogs in a swamp? Shabbos is so elevated. It's so beautiful. It's so uplifting. Why would you want to think about what you can't do when it's all about what you can do? It's like being on your honeymoon and focusing on all the wrong things that you can't do. Anyways, friends, thank you very much for joining me here this morning. Thank you, Marty, and everybody else for the beautiful comments. Much appreciated. And shalom. Have a great day. Thank you very much, everybody. Don't forget to review this chapter in Tanya. You can find it in Lessons in Tanya on our website. Just go to jewishgardens.com. Search Lessons in Tanya. Will come up in chapter 39. It's free. You can buy the book as well on Amazon. Buy the book of Tanya. This one is the practical Tanya. Or you can buy this one, which is just a straight translation of Tanya. All highly recommended reading. And just read after we've studied, after we've learned. it inside and you'll get more context. Also, please do share this video, like this video, please, so we can spread the love, spread the word, and get more people inspired to study Torah like they've never studied before. Thank you very much, everybody. Shalom, and have a wonderful day. Be safe.